Apple might be about to shake up the external monitor game in a way we haven't seen since the original Studio Display launched back in 2022. According to Bloomberg's Mark Gurman, Apple's preparing not only one but two brand new external monitors, and they could arrive as soon as later this year or slip into early 2026. Gurman says the company is already nearing mass production with these monitors, and these new models are internally codenamed J427 and J527. That's significant because it's the first time Apple's revisited the monitor category in 3 years, and it strongly suggests we're looking at more than just a simple refresh. Gurman hasn't confirmed whether these codenames map directly to a Studio Display successor or perhaps a next-gen Pro Display XDR, but he did previously report that Apple was ramping up work on a new Studio Display earlier this year, so I'm going to focus on that. In fact, the two codenames could be for two different size options, which I'll delve into later in the video. And it's not just rumors, because buried in Apple's own codes, there's references to a new Studio Display, codenamed J427, and it reveals it's running on the A19 Pro chipset. That's the same chipset inside the iPhone 17 Pro, which is wild when you think about it. It's not like this needs more power considering the current model has the A13, and that only powers the center stage camera and spatial audio speakers, but since the A13's out of circulation, it makes sense to upgrade the chipset. But what I thought is that they'd chuck in the A15 or A16 and call it a day. But why are we getting the flagship iPhone chipset in this? No idea. Seems like they just want one additional upgrade to flex in the marketing material. Anyway, let's delve into what else is rumored to be changing with this new Studio Display. Rumors are pointing towards a redesigned, upgraded, and possibly more flexible Studio Display launching in late 2025 or early 2026, and it could bring some long overdue improvements to a product that, let's be honest, never quite lived up to its $15.99 price tag. From a mini LED panel to a higher refresh rate and possibly even a larger screen size, Studio Display 2 might be everything the original should have been, and if Apple gets this right, it could become the default external display for creative professionals, developers, and everyday Mac users alike. To understand where we're headed, we've got to look at where we started. The original Studio Display was unveiled alongside the first Mac Studio in March 2022, part of Apple's big return to professional desktop hardware. It was a sleek, minimalist slab of aluminium and glass, packing a 27-inch 5K Retina LCD panel with 600 nits of brightness, a fixed 60Hz refresh rate, an A13 chipset inside running the camera and spatial audio system, and a clean set of ports, one Thunderbolt 3 and 3 USB-C. And yes, it looked fantastic on your desk, but the moment you realized the default $15.99 model couldn't even raise or lower its height, unless you paid an extra $400 for a tilt and height adjustable stand, things got awkward. Also, the display itself was essentially the same LCD older Macs were using for years, so it wasn't anything special. Despite that, the Studio Display carved out a niche audience of people who wanted something with Apple's industrial design and macOS integration. It wasn't a Pro Display XDR, and it wasn't trying to be, but over the last few years, the rest of the industry caught up fast. You now get excellent 27-inch and even 32-inch panels with higher refresh rates, better brightness, true HDR, full adjustability, and similar or better color accuracy, all for under $1,000. That's left Apple's Studio Display looking a little stuck in time. But finally in 2025, changes might be coming. The biggest update coming to the Studio Display 2 and the most reliable rumor so far is a switch to mini LED. This comes from Ross Young, a well-respected display analyst, who posted in early 2024 that Apple's working on a new 27-inch Studio Display with mini LED technology. Young has been right about Apple Display leaks in the past, including correctly predicting the screen sizes of the 16 Pro models more than a year ahead of launch, so when he says Studio Display 2 is coming with mini LED, we pay attention. Mini LED is a massive deal. It's the same technology that Apple already uses in the current 14-inch and 16-inch MacBook Pros, and it allows for significantly better contrast ratios, improved HDR performance, and higher brightness compared to standard LED backlighting. Blacks appear deeper and more uniform, highlights pop with more clarity, and overall you get a more immersive, lifelike viewing experience, especially when watching or editing high dynamic range content. For creatives, that's a serious upgrade. For everyone else, it just looks better. I know some of you might be thinking though, why not OLED? Well, Apple is only just rolling out OLED to the iPad and in the near future Macs, so to produce 27-inch OLED displays at the scale they need will take some time, so for the time being I'll take mini LED. According to Young, this new mini LED Studio Display is scheduled to launch either in late 2025 or early 2026. He didn't mention whether the resolution or refresh rate would change, but that's where a second rumor adds something extra. Back in November 2024, an anonymous tipster messaged the Relay FM podcast Upgrades to claim that Apple was testing a version of the Studio Display with a 90Hz refresh rate. That would be a clear improvement over the current 60Hz, and while it wouldn't match the 120Hz Pro motion support on iPhones and higher-end Macs, it would make scrolling animations and video playback look much smoother and more modern. A jump to 90Hz might also reduce eye strain for some users, and bring Apple's Studio Display closer to what people expect from a high-end panel in 2025. Now, it's worth noting that this source hasn't been verified. Unlike Ross Young or Minchi Kuo, this isn't someone with a track record. But considering the iPhone 17 is finally getting 120Hz, and we've heard murmurs about the iPad Air getting 90Hz, it seems Apple is finally eradicating 60Hz panels from their range of products, and that's pretty great. And what would also be great is you hitting the subscribe button and tapping the new hype button. It really helps a small channel like mine reach more Apple fans, and you'll never miss any of my latest takes on all things Apple. Anyway, Bloomberg's Mark Gurman also recently reported that Apple's planning to launch a new external display in the first half of 2026. He didn't say much about which one it would be, but this could exactly line up with Studio Display 2's timeline. It does also support early rumors that Apple's working on multiple display products, not just a single replacement but a range of displays. One of those could be a 7K display, likely a follow-up to the $5,000 Pro Display XDR, but alongside that, we could see a refreshed, more capable Studio Display for everyone else. Maybe even more than one version. And this is where I start to get hopeful, or maybe just delusional, because while the 27-inch Studio Display is nice, it's also starting to feel small. Loads of users have voiced the same frustration. They want a bigger version. 32 inches would be ideal, something in the same size class as the Pro Display XDR, but without the $5,000 price tag. People are genuinely skipping the current Studio Display for this reason alone. The only way to get more screen real estate right now is to jump from a $1,599 27-inch model to a $5,000 32-inch Pro Display XDR. That's not a friendly upsell, that's a pricing cliff. If Apple were to introduce a 32-inch Studio Display, it could slot in beautifully under $2,000 and still offer a Retina-like experience. They could go with a 6K resolution, which would be perfect for Retina scaling at 32 inches. It would solve the size issue and give users more choice. Even if the base model stayed at 27 inches, having a larger option would make a lot of sense and would help Apple compete with the flood of excellent third-party displays now dominating that segment. But of course, no Studio Display conversation is complete without talking about the stand. Apple's decision to ship a $1,599 monitor with a high adjustment in 2022 still feels absurd in 2025. Nearly every $300 monitor includes a fully adjustable stand, tilt swivel height as standards. Apple, they'll charge you $400 more just to move the display up and down. The adjustable stand is beautifully engineered, sure, but it also costs as much as a mid-range iPad. That's a kind of upsell that even Apple sheep struggle to defend. So if there's one thing Apple could do to make the Studio Display 2 more appealing, it's this. Either include the adjustable stand at the base price, or come up with a new solution. Make it modular, maybe offer several stand options from third parties at reasonable prices. I know that's unlike Apple, but in 2026, if I'm stacking books under a $1,599 display, something has gone horribly wrong. At this point though, the picture of the Studio Display 2 is starting to take shape, guys. Mini LEDs almost a lock. We have Apple code showing it's going to have the A19 Pro chipset, even though that's overkill. 90Hz refresh rate is possible and would be a very welcome surprise, and a 32-inch model feels unlikely, but if Apple's working on multiple displays, it's not out of the question. What we don't know yet is whether they're upgrading the webcam or improving the speakers, but if we're getting the power of the A19 Pro, they better upgrade those components. Either way, it feels like this time around Apple might be ready to do the Studio Display properly. The first one laid the foundation, now it's time for them to build something that really justifies the price tag. If the Studio Display 2 delivers true HDR, better motion handling, improved ergonomics, and maybe even a more flexible size option, it could become the go-to external monitor for Mac users across the board. Not just for creative pros, but for anyone tired of dealing with subpar third-party options. Though as per the norm in the world of leaks, sometimes they can sound a little too good to be true, and so there very well could be an Achilles heel with this second generation display as well. Let me know your thoughts in the comments though. Are you waiting for the Studio Display 2? Would you grab one if it had mini LED and 90Hz? Or are you holding out for a bigger display, or at the very least, a better stand? I'll be covering every leak and rumor as we get closer to launch, and if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe. We've got more coverage coming on Apple's next wave of hardware, from Studio Display 2 to the new iPads, M5 Max, and the iPhone 17 Air. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.